Two homeless black children, barefoot and starving, offered their only piece of bread to a pregnant white woman collapsed in despair behind a trash bin. That quiet act of kindness awakened something in her, and she made a decision that would go on to change all three of their lives forever. Before we dive into this story, let us know where you're watching from. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Leo, 9 years old, and his little sister Mia, 4, two orphaned children. Their parents were gone, leaving them utterly adrift in the sprawling city of Silverton. No home, no bed, and on most days no food. Their clothes were rags, thin and worn. Their small feet were calloused and hardened from constant walking. Every single step they took was a fight for survival. Leo, despite his young age, bore the crushing weight of protecting Mia. He always held his sister's hand tight, trudging through the noisy, dusty streets, his own little body already aching. In Leo's innocent eyes there was always a mixture of vigilance and a hidden despair. He dared not cry, knowing tears wouldn't bring food. They wouldn't ward off the contemptuous stares from passers-by. His greatest fear was seeing Mia collapse from hunger, or worse, being left utterly alone in this vast, indifferent city. To survive, they collected discarded bottles and scrap metal from public trash cans, putting them into an old sack, hoping to trade them for a few spare coins. Sometimes luck would smile, and a kind person would give them $5. But more often they were chased away. "Go away, you filthy brats," the shouts echoed, tearing through their hope. Older kids in the neighborhood often bullied them, snatching their money or throwing rocks. Mia would sob, clinging to Leo, who could only embrace her, shielding her with his frail arms. He was used to physical pain, but the pain of seeing his sister afraid was far greater. Every night, curled up on the cold pavement under the dim streetlights, Leo often whispered made-up fairy tales to Mia. He tried to conjure another world for her, if only in her brief dreams. That morning, Silverton's sun scorched down, piercing through a hazy smog. Leo and Mia woke up on the cold pavement, their backs aching, lips parched. Their stomachs growled, empty since yesterday. Leo picked up the heavy sack, clutched Mia's hand, and the two siblings trudged on. They found a few flattened water bottles, a bent spoon, and some metal cans. Gnawing hunger was their constant companion, but Leo's will to survive was even stronger. "Maybe today we'll buy some bread," Leo murmured, trying to force a weary smile for Mia. They arrived at the market. Silverton Market was bustling with the shouts of vendors selling fresh fish from piled-up baskets and the fragrant smell of grilled bread from smoky charcoal ovens. The clamor of hundreds of people jostled through the aisles. Frayed, colorful tarpaulins hung haphazardly, partially obscuring the sky. Carts laden with bananas and tomatoes wobbled on the uneven road, sometimes bumping into each other. Crowds of simply dressed, worn-out laborers hurried to buy and sell, exchanging local gossip. The noise and the smell of food mingled, but no one paid attention to the two small, grubby figures. Leo and Mia timidly huddled in a corner, watching every stall, every passer-by. Their gaze didn't dare to meet anyone directly, only flitting over the pastries, the steaming dishes, and the well-fed smiles. Every indifferent glance, every dismissive wave from an adult, even if not directly aimed at them, deeply etched a sense of shame into Leo's young soul. He felt a choking bitterness. Why do we have to endure this? Mia squeezed her brother's hand, as if she too sensed the invisible coldness enveloping them. Near the banana stall, a group of boys were eating roasted corn. One boy dropped a piece of bread. Leo waited for them to leave, then bent down to pick it up, carefully wiping off the dust with his shirt. Mia clutched his hand, her eyes lighting up. But before he could put it in his mouth, a dog darted past, snatching the bread from Leo's hand. The two siblings sank to the ground, hugging their knees, silent. Mia burst into choked sobs, not out of regret for the bread, but from helplessness. Leo held her tight, feeling a bitterness he had never known. "Garbage will feed us today," Leo whispered, his voice hardening like a vow to fate. They walked to the back of a restaurant where food scraps were discarded. The stench was overwhelming, flies buzzed, but it was their last hope. They rummaged through the trash, finding a bowl of slightly sour rice and beans. Leo quickly rinsed it with water from a leaky pipe, and then the two siblings sat under a withered tree. They opened the rice package with trembling hands, sharing tiny spoonfuls. This was their first meal in 2 days. Leo fed Mia first, smiling as she swallowed each small bite, the sweetness of life spreading in her parched mouth. As the last piece of rice was shared, a shadow appeared by the trash can. The baker, with eyes full of compassion. He saw the two children scavenging for food, and his heart ached. "Hey, you two!" he called, offering a warm, fragrant roll. Leo and Mia stared in disbelief, their gaze wide. "Thank you, sir," Leo babbled, while Mia hugged the bread tight. They took a small bite, the sweet aroma spreading, tasting like the best meal of their lives. But just then, a faint moan echoed from behind the trash can. A woman lay curled on the ground, her clothes torn, her face pale, cradling her large, pregnant belly. Sweat drenched her forehead, her lips bled faintly, and her breathing was weak, fluttering. She looked on the verge of collapsing, seemingly struggling with severe hypoglycemia and early contractions, threatening the tiny life within her. The fragrant bread in Leo and Mia's hand suddenly became meaningless. Their hearts pounded, a mix of fear and pity washing over them. Leo saw an image of Mia in the frail woman, and a familiar dread surged. He didn't want anyone to suffer from hunger or cold as he and his sister had. "Ma'am, are you okay?" Leo knelt, gently shaking her. She didn't answer, only moaned softly. Leo looked around. The market was still bustling, but no one paid attention. The indifferent gazes of the crowd were like a knife slicing into the children's hearts. He broke off a piece of bread, bringing it to her mouth. "Please eat, ma'am, just a little. You need strength for your baby to be healthy." Mia also placed a small piece in her hand, her eyes welling up. Mia hesitated, looking at the bread, then nodded to her brother as if understanding that kindness was the only thing they had to offer. The woman slowly opened her eyes, her gaze blurry, full of wariness. She looked at Leo and Mia's dusty, tired but worried faces. Then she looked at the pure white bread in their hands, something precious they likely needed themselves. She frowned, her voice hoarse, speaking between coughs. Are you trying to trick me? Or steal something from me? I've met too many liars in this life." Leo and Mia were stunned. Their clear eyes looked at her, not understanding. "No, ma'am, we just want to help you," Leo stammered. He felt a deep sadness that his act of compassion was doubted. But his pity for the woman was even greater. The woman gasped again, the pain making her wince. You're hungry too. You need it more than I do," she said, her eyes still full of suspicion, yet mixed with a hint of surprise. Leo smiled faintly, a childlike but firm smile. "Because my sister and I know what hunger feels like, ma'am. Yesterday no one helped me, but I don't want your baby to suffer." Hearing Leo, Sarah suddenly burst into tears, muffled sobs as if releasing all the resentment and pain she had held back for so long. Amidst her tears she realized, these two children, in their extreme hunger, in their destitution to the point of scavenging, were willing to give up their most precious food to save a stranger, someone they didn't even know and who had even doubted them. That innocence, that unconditional kindness, awakened something deep within Sarah's soul. The bread wasn't just food. It was proof of the humanity she thought no longer existed in her world. It was a ray of light dispelling the deep despair that enveloped her. In that moment, her faith in humanity, something Sarah had lost long ago, was rekindled by the clear eyes of the two children. She ate the bread, slowly, painfully, as if each bite contained new life. The moment the bread touched her lips, Sarah felt a small surge of energy spread, helping her regain some strength. The contractions also eased. Leo helped her sit up, gently wiping her forehead with his shirt. Mia also used her small hands to rub her arm. Gradually, Sarah began to breathe better. Her body stopped trembling. The baker, after seeing the scene, also silently brought her a glass of water and another small piece of bread, understanding that she needed more strength to overcome this difficult time. Sarah still felt very weak, her face pale, but her eyes were no longer blurry. She looked at the two children with immense gratitude. In the past, Sarah had been a talented fashion designer, renowned throughout Silverton. She had a happy family, a loving husband, and a brilliant career. But then, a terrible incident struck. A financial scandal involving her husband's company caused everything to collapse. Her husband was falsely accused, their assets frozen, and then he suddenly died in prison from a severe illness. Sarah was hated by the public, mercilessly crushed by the media, deemed an accomplice, even a fraudster. She lost everything: reputation, money, friends, and faith in life. She tried to contact her biological family in another city, but they refused to help, fearing entanglement in her scandal. Old friends all turned their backs. No one wanted to be associated with a failure like her. The pain of losing her husband, the humiliation from society, and continuous despair had completely broken her down, to the point of neglecting herself, not eating or drinking. She was evicted from her rented house. No one wanted to hire her due to her notoriety. Now only the growing baby in her womb was the sole reason for her to keep going. For days she wandered, barely surviving, trying to hold on to what little spirit remained. But one afternoon, when intense hunger tormented her from not eating, and her legs could no longer support her, she collapsed by the trash can behind the restaurant. The hunger combined with overwhelming despair had caused severe hypoglycemia, and she even began to show signs of contractions, threatening the tiny life within her. She no longer cared about the title of talented designer. She was just a tired, lonely, forgotten, hungry, and pregnant woman, standing on the brink of life and death. The appearance of Leo and Mia at that moment was like a last ray of light in her dark life, a reminder that good things still existed. After a few minutes she spoke again, her voice weak but resolute. My name is Sarah." Leo nodded. "I'm Leo, and this is Mia. Pia et Diana." She looked at them and weakly smiled. "Leo, Mia, you two have an extraordinary good heart. I didn't think anyone cared about others anymore. You saved my life, saved this baby. I owe you a great debt, a debt I can never repay in this lifetime. I swear, I will never forget this kindness. One day, if you ever need help, find me. Promise me, you must find me." The dove felt utterly rich in every Sarah said, her voice firm, as if engraving the vow into her heart. She rummaged in her pocket, taking out an old, crumpled business card of hers, which still bore her old name and title. She tremblingly handed it to Leo. "This is mine. Keep it." Leo took the business card, shyly shaking his head. "I don't need it, ma'am. It's enough that you're well." Mia nodded, hugging her brother's arm. Sarah tried to offer a few remaining coins from her pocket, but Leo firmly refused. "You keep it. For the baby." The two siblings stood up, picked up their sack, and returned to the dusty street, stomachs still empty, but hearts warm from having done the right thing. They didn't look back, not caring for gratitude or expecting anything in return. Their lives continued, harsh and uncertain. The two siblings looked down at their empty hands. No more food. Their stomachs were still empty, but their hearts felt warm, a warmth radiating from their recent act of compassion. "Maybe today I did something good," Leo whispered to Mia. Although he knew a piece of bread wasn't enough to change his life, helping others had given Leo and Mia the motivation to keep trying, to believe that kindness still existed in the world. That tiny belief, like a seed sprouting in barren soil, would shape their path forward. They picked up their sack and walked back to the street, back to their lives, back to deprivation, back to their struggle for survival. Just a few hours after that, Leo and Mia continued to scavenge in the scorching sun. They were tired, their legs trembling from hunger. When they rummaged through a trash can near a dark alley, a shadow loomed over them. It was a group of older kids led by Dax, who often bullied and robbed them. "Look, trash rats." Dax sneered, violently snatching Leo's heavy sack of scrap. Bottles and metal clattered everywhere. Mia was terrified, sobbing, clinging to Leo. Leo tried to grab the sack back, but Dax shoved him down, then kicked his leg hard. "Who do you think you are, punk?" Dax roared, stepping on the sack. "What do you have that's so precious?" Leo tried to get up, but a sharp pain from his leg made him stumble, unable to pursue. Mia cried out in desperation, "Give it back to my brother!" Dax laughed, grimacing, about to yank the sack, scattering its contents. But right then, Leo, despite being in pain, still tried to stand up, his eyes burning as he stared directly at Dax. "Give it back! That's our hard work. You have no right to take it!" Dax quacked back, his voice filled with bitterness. "I used to be as hungry as you. No one ever gave me bread. Now, I'm not letting anyone get ahead of me." He was about to lunge at Leo. Exactly at that moment, Sarah appeared. After gaining some strength and clarity, her mind was fixated on the 2 children who had saved her. She had walked through the streets, asking familiar vendors in the market. She remembered Leo mentioning scavenging in nearby alleys. When she passed a deserted alley, she heard shouts and desperate cries. As she stepped into the alley, she froze, witnessing the scene before her. Dax snatching Leo's sack, and Mia sobbing. "Stop!" Sarah said, her voice filled with power and resolve. Dax, unexpectedly confronted by an adult, took a few steps back, dropped the sack, and fled with his friends. Sarah quickly walked over, kneeling beside Leo, her eyes worried as she scanned his leg. "Are you two okay?" she asked, her voice full of concern. Leo nodded, but his look clearly showed weariness and fear. Sarah looked at the 2 siblings, their clothes torn, faces smudged, and her heart ached. She realized something. Giving them a single piece of bread wasn't enough to change their lives. They needed more than that. They needed a home. They needed shelter. They needed a mother. Sarah took a deep breath. This decision was not easy, especially when she herself was struggling, homeless. She remembered her vow to repay their kindness. "Children," Sarah said, her voice softened but still firm, "I know you have nowhere to go. Neither do I. I don't have a home anymore, but I can find a small rented room, and we can rent it together. It won't be spacious, but it will be enough for us to shelter from the rain, to have a warm meal together. I don't have much money, and I'm pregnant, but I'll try my best. If you trust me, we can build a family together. I promise I will take care of you as if you were my own children." Leo and Mia looked at each other, their eyes wide with surprise. A home? That was something they had never dared to dream of. Life on the streets had taught them caution, but Sarah's sincere gaze and warm voice made them hesitate. Leo hesitated. He remembered being tricked by empty promises from adults, but Sarah's resolute eyes and Mia's small hand clutching his, her little eyes sparkling with innocent hope, made him want to believe, just this once. He looked at Mia, knowing this opportunity might be the only hope for his sister to have a different life, free from hunger and cold, no longer sleeping on the pavement. "Ma'am, do you really mean it?" Leo asked softly, his voice trembling. "You won't abandon us, will you?" Sarah gently placed her hand on Leo's shoulder. "I promise. I will never abandon you." She smiled, a warm and steady smile, as if dispelling all the fear in the children's hearts. "Come with me." Sarah led Leo and Mia away. With the little money she had left, and an initial help from a kind neighbor Sarah had once assisted when she was a designer, this person lent her a small amount. Enough to cover the first month's rent. She found a small, dilapidated rented room tucked away in an old alley. However, the landlady, an older woman with a stern face, initially hesitated. "I don't want street children staying here," she said, her eyes sweeping over Leo and Mia. "It's too much trouble." Sarah tightly held Mia's hand, gently bowing her head. "Please, ma'am, we'll be quiet. We won't cause any problems." The landlady sighed, her gaze resting on Sarah's growing belly, then on Leo and Mia, who stood clinging to her. The landlady let out a deep sigh, looking intently into Sarah's resolute eyes, then back at the 2 children clinging to her. A flicker of empathy crossed her face. "I was an orphan once," she said softly, her voice softening. "If you're brave enough to take on 3 children, I'll let you have the first month without a deposit. But remember, Don't let them cause any trouble. The room itself was just a single space serving as both living room and bedroom, with a small kitchen corner. It had no windows, but it was cozier than any bridge underpass or trash bin. The smell of dampness and dust still lingered, but there was a sense of safety and privacy that none of them had ever known. Leo and Mia stepped inside, their gaze wide with wonder. This wasn't a big house, but it was the first place they could call home after many years. In Leo's heart, a feeling both strange and fearful arose. Would this be a new beginning or just another temporary stop in their lives? But looking at Sarah's firm gaze and Mia's small hand clutching his, Leo felt a faint glimmer of hope. For the first time, Leo felt that a home was not just a shelter, but a place where his heart could be warm. "This is where we'll start anew," Sarah said, smiling gently. She used the little money she had left to buy rice, beans, and a bit of chicken, preparing the most substantial meal she could. The three of them sat on the cold cement floor, eating ravenously, their eyes tearful. This was the first time in many years they had eaten their fill while seated under a protective roof, without shouts or being chased away. Throughout their years of wandering, Leo and Mia often whispered to each other about a home. Not a big one, just a small, warm corner with an adult who wouldn't chase them away, and meals not scavenged from trash. That dream, seemingly distant, now stood right before their eyes. When Sarah said, "This is where we'll start anew," Leo's heart pounded. He looked at Mia, seeing his sister also looking at him, her eyes sparkling with innocent happiness. But then a sense of shame crept in. They had only given her a small piece of bread. An impulsive act of compassion. Was that truly enough to earn an entire home, a family? Leo felt embarrassed, not daring to look directly at Sarah, fearing he was receiving too much compared to what he had given. Sarah told them about her past, a talented designer, a glorious life that collapsed due to false accusations and her husband's wrongful death. She had lost everything, and only the baby in her womb was her sole hope. "You gave me hope," she said, her voice choked. "And now, I want to give you a new life. We will build it together." In those early days, Sarah often quietly observed the two children. Despite having endured so much hardship and deprivation, Leo and Mia's eyes still held a strange spark. It was optimism, an innocent belief in a better tomorrow. They didn't complain, didn't blame fate, but always tried to find joy in the smallest things, a final grain of rice, a hug from a sibling, or a word of encouragement. It was this undying belief, something Sarah had long lost, that gradually reignited the flame within her. She realized that she wasn't just taking them in. They, with their resilience and innocence, were saving her soul. They were the motivation for her to stand up, to overcome pain and despair, because she knew they deserved a better life. Life in their new home was far from easy. Sarah, with her growing belly, struggled to find work. With her notorious reputation, no one wanted to hire a disgraced designer or a convicted person. After many rejections at larger fashion houses, Sarah realized she couldn't easily return to the high fashion world. She decided to use her most basic skills, sewing. She found a small tailor shop in the neighborhood and asked for work as an assistant. Initially, she was only given simple tasks like cutting fabric and ironing clothes. But with the skill and aesthetic eye of a talented designer, Sarah quickly regained the finesse of her hand. She relearned basic sewing techniques and was gradually assigned more complex garments. She worked diligently from early morning until late at night, earning a meager wage, barely enough to get by, sometimes falling into severe deprivation. Her only goal was to earn enough money to support her 3 children. Meanwhile, Leo and Mia, after years of wandering, had an intense desire to contribute to their new family. They didn't want to be a burden on Sarah, who had saved their lives. Mia, with her natural dexterity, found her way to a tailor shop nearby. She asked for an apprenticeship, willing to do any task, from sweeping to sorting needles and threads. The shop owner, a kind elderly woman, seeing Mia's diligence and quick learning ability, agreed to take her on. Mia quickly learned basic sewing techniques and began to earn small wages from her first stitches. Mia believed this was also how she could help Mother Sarah realize her sewing dreams. Leo, though still young, with strong will and determination, found a part-time job at an old electronics repair shop run by an elderly man whom Sarah had met through one of her few remaining acquaintances. This man didn't care about Sarah's reputation, he only saw her sincerity and resilience. He agreed to let Leo do odd jobs like sorting components and cleaning, and gradually taught the boy basic electronics knowledge. It was hard work. Leo's hands were often stained with oil and grime, but he felt proud, earning his first coins through his own labor. Every penny they earned they carefully gave to Sarah, even if it was just small change, as a promise to always stand by her. They voluntarily worked extra, not because Sarah forced them, but because they understood the burden their mother was carrying and wanted to help her build a better life. In moments when Sarah collapsed from exhaustion, Leo would quietly cover her with a blanket, while Mia would place crayon drawings of their family under her pillow, like silent encouragements. More importantly, Sarah still made time every evening to teach them to read and write, buying them books and pens with her meager savings. Every evening they sat around their small table, studying together, eating dinner together, like a real family. A few weeks after Leo and Mia moved in, Sarah went into labor and gave birth to a healthy baby girl. She named her Lily. Their small rented room was filled with the cries of an infant and weary but happy smiles. Mia loved Lily from the first sight, often holding and soothing the baby. Leo also cared deeply for Lily. He would often sit by the crib watching the baby sleep, a sense of peace he had never known in his life. Lily, the innocent newborn, seemed to bind them together into a complete family, no blood relation needed. Though life wasn't always smooth, with a newborn and 2 older children, Sarah's financial burden became increasingly apparent. There were times she had to work night shifts or cut expenses to the maximum to ensure all 3 children had enough to eat and wear. Sometimes Lily would get sick, and Sarah had to stay up all night caring for her, while still worrying about Leo and Mia. The pressures of life often exhausted Sarah. Some nights she would cry silently from self-pity and anxiety about the future of her 3 children. There was even a time she had to sell some of her few remaining keepsakes to buy medicine for Lily. The whispers of some people around them about her taking on burdens or being a convicted person still reached Sarah's ears, but she ignored them. In her weakest moments, Sarah looked at Leo and Mia, seeing the love and ceaseless effort in their eyes. That alone gave her strength, reminding her why she had to keep fighting. The love for Leo and Mia and her deep gratitude filled her heart, enabling her to overcome all difficulties. 12 years later, Leo and Mia were no longer the scrawny, scavenging children. They grew up under Sarah's care and love. Leo, with his intelligence and perseverance, studied diligently. He applied for scholarships to a prestigious vocational college specializing in electrical engineering. However, his first scholarship application was rejected. To pay for his studies and help Mother Sarah, Leo worked many odd jobs, delivering newspapers in the morning, washing dishes at a restaurant, or hauling heavy goods. He often came home with aching shoulders, exhausted. But a bright smile still shone on his face when he saw the warm light in their small home, and Mother Sarah's smile. He never complained, only quietly tried his best, like a solid pillar protecting his new family. Mia, with her gentleness and compassion, grew into a thoughtful young woman. She learned tailoring from a kind neighbor, and gradually became a skilled seamstress. Mia mainly worked sewing at home or taking small orders from the neighborhood, as there wasn't enough money for her to attend formal training. She regularly sewed clothes for the family, saving a significant amount, and even received small orders from the neighborhood. At this time she meets Zoe. Mia also constantly learned and practiced. She often stayed up late sewing and embroidering, hoping to create more beautiful products and earn more money to share the burden with Mother Sarah and her brother. Her small hands, once calloused from scavenging, now skillfully created meticulous stitches, each one filled with boundless love. Sarah, though older, continued to work diligently at the tailor shop. She had tried to apply to a few larger design houses, but all her applications were rejected due to her past notoriety. Gradually, with her dedication and quick relearning ability, she became not only a skilled seamstress but also a small designer for local clients, creating simple yet elegant outfits. Word of her talent spread through word of mouth, mostly among the working class who didn't care about her past. She received more orders and her income became more stable. Her life had been through many storms, but now, beside her 3 children, not of her blood, she found true meaning. She often looked at the old, crumpled business card, remembering the moment of her deepest solitude that had been saved by 2 innocent children. Her eyes now held no despair, but peace and contentment. She knew that she had found her true family, not through blood, but through sharing and kindness. One sunny afternoon, their small rented room was no longer a temporary shelter. It had become a true home, filled with laughter. Lily, now an active little girl, ran around the house. Leo and Mia, now grown young adults, still regarded Sarah as their mother, and Lily as their biological sister. Their lives still held challenges. Financial burdens sometimes still weighed heavily on Sarah and Leo. But whenever they looked at each other, seeing the love and unconditional support in their eyes, they knew they were not alone. They had overcome the abyss together, and they would continue to face whatever life brought them, together. Their family, not built by blood, but by compassion, sacrifice, and a silent promise, had changed everything. Join us to share meaningful stories by hitting the like and subscribe buttons. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell to start your day with profound lessons and heartfelt empathy.